They roared onto the drawing board. Some even rolled onto secret test tracks, but they vanished before the public could ever see them. Too wild, too controversial, or too ahead of their time, these machines were quietly canceled and buried by the very companies that created them. Here are 9 banned American cars that automakers don't want you to remember. The story of the 1967 Chrysler Turbine Car is one of the most fascinating and poignant chapters in automotive history. A rare moment when the future felt almost within reach, only to slip away under the combined weight of politics, regulation, and the sobering realities of engineering. At its heart, it's the tale of a bold American experiment. A fleet of sleek, futuristic sedans, each humming with the soft, otherworldly whine of a genuine jet turbine under the hood. The project promised effortless smoothness, versatility, and a vision of tomorrow's motoring. And yet, it would end with nearly every car unceremoniously destroyed, leaving only a few survivors to gather dust in museum halls as silent reminders of what might have been. By the mid-1960s, the Chrysler Corporation had become the world leader in automotive turbine research, investing decades into the idea of replacing traditional piston engines with compact, lightweight gas turbines derived from aviation technology. These engines, remarkably simple in design with far fewer moving parts, offered a near magical set of advantages: whisper-quiet operation, vibration-free driving, and an almost uncanny ability to run on an enormous variety of fuels: kerosene, diesel, heating oil, even vegetable oil, and, as famously tested, tequila. To many, this felt like science fiction brought to life. In 1963, Chrysler took the extraordinary step of building a limited production run of about 55 turbine cars, cloaked in dramatic Ghia-built bronze bodies styled with jet-age flair. A sharply sculpted front end, turbine-inspired taillights, and interiors trimmed in matching copper-colored leather. These weren't fragile prototypes kept behind ropes. They were handed to regular American drivers in a wide-reaching test program meant to prove the practicality of turbine power on everyday roads. Test families across the country found them fascinating to drive. There was no starter motor in the conventional sense. Instead, the turbine simply spooled up with a high-pitched whoosh before settling into a steady, gentle hum. Drivers marveled at the smoothness, the complete lack of vibration compared to a piston engine, and the futuristic feel of gliding through traffic aboard a machine that sounded like a jet at idle. Yet for all its promise, the turbine car faced insurmountable obstacles. While it could burn almost anything, turbine engines weren't fuel efficient at the low speeds and frequent stops of city driving, where they tended to guzzle fuel rather than sip it. And though they produced less smog-forming hydrocarbons compared to contemporary engines, they generated more nitrogen oxides, a growing concern for regulators as America awoke to the dangers of air pollution. Compounding this was the fact that turbine throttle response, while thrilling at speed, was less immediate than piston engines in urban driving, leading to concerns about control, safety, and suitability for mass-market use. But the real undoing came from a tangle of political and regulatory pressures. Global emissions rules were tightening, with new standards looming in the late 1960s and early 1970s that would have forced Chrysler to spend enormous sums to clean up the turbine's exhaust profile. Meanwhile, the cost of producing turbines at scale proved daunting, and the U.S. government, once fascinated by alternative propulsion, lost enthusiasm as new emissions targets focused on proven, more easily adaptable piston engines. By 1967, Chrysler quietly concluded that mass-producing turbine road cars was not feasible under the regulatory and economic climate of the time. The heartbreaking decision followed. Almost all the test fleet, still fully functional and strikingly futuristic, were ordered to be destroyed. Officially, this was for tax and liability reasons, to prevent them from falling into private hands where Chrysler couldn't support them, and to write off the research costs. In the end, only about 9 turbine cars survived, given to museums or retained by Chrysler for posterity. The rest were crushed, their sleek bodies mangled, their space-age powertrains silenced forever. The Chrysler Turbine Car thus became an accidental outlaw, effectively banned everywhere, not by a single explicit regulation, but by the complex matrix of emissions laws, cost realities, and political decisions that together made turbine power too risky, too unconventional, and ultimately too uncontrollable for an automotive world under pressure to clean up quickly. The sight of those few surviving bronze sedans in museums today still captivates visitors. They seem almost unreal, relics of a future that almost happened. In the decades since, turbine engines have occasionally reappeared in concept cars and racing prototypes, but never again with the same ambitious goal of putting jet-powered cars in suburban driveways. The Chrysler Turbine Car remains one of the boldest experiments ever put on American roads, a moment when imagination roared ahead of regulation, if only briefly, before reality shut it down. Its legend lives on not because it changed the world, but because it showed so vividly how daring that world might have been. Crafted rules that favored innovation above all else, minimal restrictions, huge power outputs, and the requirement to build just 200 road-going homologation specials. Manufacturers leaped at the chance to stretch technology to its absolute limits, producing monsters like the Audi Sport Quattro S1, Peugeot 205 Turbo 16, and Lancia Delta S4, cars so powerful and so light that they seemed barely controllable. Porsche, never content to watch from the sidelines, began quietly developing its own contender. Known internally as the Group B prototype, this car represented a radical departure from Porsche's usual formula. Rather than adapting the venerable rear-engine 911 architecture, engineers envisioned a sleek, mid-engine design that balanced weight distribution for the unpredictable surfaces of rally stages. The bodywork was made from carbon fiber and Kevlar, materials that were then the cutting edge of automotive engineering, offering incredible strength with minimal weight. At its heart, the Group B carried a turbocharged flat-six engine, drawing on Porsche's vast experience with forced induction from the 935 and 956 endurance racers. Power figures were never officially released, but estimates suggest it could easily have matched decisively. Almost overnight, Group B was banned from international rallying. Porsche, seeing the writing on the wall even before the final decision, mothballed the entire Group B project. The car never raced a single stage, and the ambitious plan to produce a homologation run of road cars died stillborn in the design studio. Only a few prototypes, built to showcase what Porsche could achieve, survived as silent witnesses to a program that ended before it truly began. Today, those surviving Group B prototypes are precious artifacts of what might have been, a vision of a Porsche rally dynasty that never had the chance to be written into the record books. They are reminders of an era when motorsport walked the knife edge between brilliance and disaster, and when Porsche itself dared to step beyond its comfort zone in pursuit of absolute supremacy. In many ways, the story of the 1970 General Motors XP882, more famously known in its later evolution as the two-rotor Corvette, is one of the most compelling and haunting chapters in Corvette lore. A tantalizing glimpse into a version of America's sports car that never got to thunder down the highways, not because of lack of vision or engineering talent, but because the winds of history, politics, and technology shifted so violently that even the mighty GM couldn't hold course. It's a story that combines bold experimentation, corporate ambition, and the cruel hand of global events, leaving behind only a single sleek prototype as a ghost of what could have been. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, the automotive world was captivated by the promise of the rotary, Wankel engine. Compact, lightweight, and mechanically simple compared to piston engines, the rotary seemed to embody the future. Smooth power delivery, high revving character, and a seductive freedom from the vibration and harshness of traditional engines. Mazda led the charge publicly, but behind the scenes, General Motors, then the world's largest and most powerful automaker, had quietly invested staggering resources into rotary development, convinced it could revolutionize not just performance cars, but everything from compacts to full-size sedans. Against this backdrop, the Corvette division dared to dream of something truly radical. The XP882 started life not specifically as a rotary Corvette, but as an advanced engineering prototype exploring a mid-engine layout, part of the wave of midship sports car experiments GM was playing with to keep pace with European rivals and fend off Ford's legendary GT40. But as rotary fever gripped GM, engineers saw an opportunity: marry the futuristic styling and balance of a mid-engine Corvette prototype with the even more futuristic power of a Wankel rotary engine. The result would be nothing less than a statement, a Corvette unlike any before it, smaller, lighter, and smoother, yet still distinctly American. By 1970, this vision coalesced into the two-rotor Corvette. Its heart was a GM-designed two-rotor Wankel engine mounted behind the seats, driving the rear wheels. The promise on paper was intoxicating. A sleek, lithe sports car, freed from the bulk and complexity of the big block V8s that had dominated Corvette performance, yet still offering spirited power delivery and a rev-happy character no piston engine could match. The styling echoed the space-age sensibilities of the time. Sharp lines, wide stance, dramatic vents, clearly influenced by contemporary concepts, but still recognizably Corvette. But the dawn of the 1970s also brought shadows that no engineer could ignore. The first oil crisis in 1973 shattered the American sense of infinite fuel supply, overnight transforming gas-guzzling performance into a corporate liability. At the same time, tightening emission standards began to suffocate the rotary engine's promise. While the rotary could make impressive power for its size, it struggled with incomplete combustion, leading to high levels of unburned hydrocarbons, a pollution metric regulators were clamping down on with new ferocity. To compound matters, real-world reliability testing exposed flaws that seemed manageable at first, but grew more troubling under scrutiny. The apex seals, critical to maintaining compression within each rotor chamber, proved to be a persistent headache. In high-performance applications, longevity and fuel economy both lagged behind GM's projections. Each of these issues might have been solvable with time, but time was the one thing GM no longer had, as public opinion turned against anything that looked inefficient or indulgent. By the mid-1970s, after millions invested and years of experimentation, GM made the painful decision to cancel all rotary engine development across its brands. This was no half measure. It was a sweeping, categorical retreat from what had once been hailed internally as the company's next engineering revolution. With the rotary engines gone, the rotary Corvette was left orphaned, its very essence dependent on a power plant that would never see production. There simply was no viable plan to retrofit it with a conventional V8 without a complete redesign that defeated its original engineering purpose. And so, the two-rotor Corvette, born of optimism, shaped by vision, and promised as a bold new chapter in Corvette history, was quietly mothballed. No dealership brochures, no showrooms, no chance for enthusiasts to see, touch, or hear its turbine-like whir. Almost all traces vanished, except for the lone surviving prototype, which remains preserved, a poignant static testament to a road never traveled. Today, when enthusiasts and historians gaze upon the XP882 two-rotor Corvette, they see more than a mere concept car. They see the crossroads of ambition and reality, a daring answer to a question that history abruptly decided no longer needed asking. It stands frozen in time as a beautiful anomaly, a Corvette sculpted by the spirit of experimentation and optimism, and undone not by its own shortcomings alone, but by a perfect storm of global crises, shifting political winds, and the cold math of corporate survival. It remains, even now, a haunting vision of what American performance could have been had the world's tides run just a little differently. And in that lingering question, what if, the legend of the rotary Corvette continues to live. The saga of the 1994 Jaguar XJ220 V12 prototype is among the most bittersweet tales in the history of exotic cars. A story of audacious ambition colliding head-on with the cold reality of global regulation, leaving behind nothing but a few glorious, undrivable ghosts. It's the story of a car conceived in the late 1980s during Britain's most unguarded moment of automotive optimism, only to be strangled by emissions rules tightening like a vice just as the dream was ready to roar to life. In the late 1980s, Jaguar's engineers, many volunteering their own time, set out to build something almost unthinkable, a hypercar to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Ferrari F40 and Porsche 959, but with a uniquely British character. The car they envisioned was the Jaguar XJ220, a name evoking its targeted top speed, 220 miles per hour. But the car they actually built in prototype form went even further than anyone had dared hope. Under its low, flowing, impossibly sleek bodywork sat a masterpiece of engineering, a 6.2-liter naturally aspirated V12 derived from Jaguar's Group C racing engines, paired with a cutting-edge all-wheel drive system. This combination promised a seamless torrent of torque, a symphony of 12 cylinders, and traction to tame that colossal power, making it, in every sense, the ultimate gentleman's supercar. The concept was unveiled at the 1988 British International Motor Show, and the response was electric. Crowds swarmed the stand, deposits rolled in from collectors and celebrities, and Jaguar suddenly found itself expected to deliver not just a concept, but a production-ready hypercar worthy of its badge and the hype. Yet, as is so often the case in automotive history, the real world had other plans. By the early 1990s, the global mood had shifted dramatically. The economic boom of the 80s had faded, recession loomed. Meanwhile, emissions regulations, especially in Europe, became dramatically more stringent. The magnificent V12, powerful and emotive though it was, simply couldn't be made to comply without a complete redesign and costly exhaust aftertreatment systems that would have blunted its character and pushed the already astronomical price tag into the stratosphere. The all-wheel drive system, which had added complexity, weight, and development headaches, faced its own share of challenges under evolving regulations and cost constraints. Faced with these harsh realities, Jaguar made a decision that forever shaped the car's legend. The production XJ220 would abandon both its soul-stirring V12 and its sophisticated AWD layout. In their place came a twin-turbocharged 3.5-liter V6, a racing-derived engine developed with Tom Walkinshaw Racing. Lighter, more compact, and emissions-compliant, this V6 made the car startlingly fast. Top speed still eclipsed 210 miles per hour, but it was not the V12 symphony that enthusiasts had been promised. Likewise, the switch to rear-wheel drive saved weight and money, but stripped away part of the technological promise that had wowed crowds back in 1988. And so the original V12 prototype XJ220, so close to production, so nearly real, was effectively banned from ever being built for public roads anywhere. The prototypes themselves, already built in tiny numbers, became fascinating museum pieces, testaments to what Jaguar once dared to dream. They were never homologated, never crash-tested for production, and never blessed with road-legal status. The handful that existed survived only as engineering mules and show cars, their engines occasionally fired up in private garages, but never legally unleashed on public roads. The production XJ220, despite being one of the fastest cars in the world, always carried the weight of that compromise. Buyers who had placed deposits expecting a V12 AWD supercar were presented instead with something different. Still world-class, still beautiful, but overshadowed by what it wasn't. This disconnect between the dream and the reality haunted the car's reputation, and it sold in far fewer numbers than Jaguar had anticipated. Today, the original V12 XJ220 prototypes are among the most fascinating what-ifs of automotive history. They represent the moment Jaguar reached for a crown once held by Ferrari and Porsche, only to find the ground shifting beneath their feet. They remind us that the car world doesn't live in a vacuum. Engineering brilliance must always contend with the tides of regulation, politics, and global economics. And yet, when enthusiasts see those few surviving prototypes, low, wide, sculpted in aluminum, with their 12-cylinder hearts still intact, they see more than an unfinished project. They see the echo of late 1980s confidence, of a time when engineers and designers dared to chase impossible numbers and believed, if only briefly, that they could bend the future to their will. In that frozen moment, before the ban, before reality intervened, the XJ220 V12 wasn't just a car. It was Jaguar's audacious, beating, 12-cylinder dream. And though it never officially lived, its spirit continues to fascinate anyone lucky enough to glimpse what might have been. The tale of the 1986 Ford RS200 evolution is one that perfectly captures the exhilarating yet tragic apex of Group B rallying, an era often remembered as both the golden age of rally innovation and a cautionary saga of speed pushed too far. Ford's RS200 Evolution was the company's ultimate bid to conquer one of the most brutal, thrilling, and unforgiving motorsports arenas ever devised, a competition that allowed technological extremism, rewarded bravery, and tested the limits of man and machine. Yet, despite its potential to be a rally legend, the RS200 Evolution's career was extinguished almost as soon as it began, buried beneath the weight of tragedy, regulatory crackdown, and shifting priorities. Group B rallying, created by the FIA in 1982, was a revolutionary but dangerously permissive racing class. The regulations were loose. Manufacturers had to homologate just 200 road cars, but otherwise were free to innovate with little restriction on power, materials, and aerodynamics. The result was a breathtaking arms race between automakers, Audi with its Quattro all-wheel drive technology and turbocharged monsters, Peugeot with the razor-sharp 205 Turbo 16, Lancia with the legendary Delta S4, and of course Ford with the RS200. Ford's RS200 was born out of necessity and ambition. Unlike many of its rivals, the RS200 was a clean-sheet design, no 4WD adaptations of existing models here. Instead, it was engineered from the ground up as a mid-engine, four-wheel drive machine optimized for the brutal rigors of rally stages that ranged from icy mountain passes to blistering desert runs. Early RS200s were formidable but still evolving, and Ford knew to truly compete for titles, an even more aggressive, powerful version was needed. Enter the RS200 Evolution. This was Ford's ultimate weapon, with an engine that was turbocharged to produce well over 600 horsepower, a staggering figure at a car weighing just over 2,200 pounds. The Evolution featured wide, flared body panels that not only enhanced its menacing looks, but were functional for improved downforce and cooling. Massive spoilers, air vents, and aggressive aerodynamics gave the car a planted stance and razor-sharp agility. Every detail was engineered for maximum performance and traction on treacherous rally surfaces. Yet just as the RS200 Evolution was poised to launch Ford's dominance in the Group B arena, the world shifted dramatically. Group B's very nature, a no-holds-barred battle for speed and technological supremacy, had become increasingly perilous. The lightweight cars, combined with skyrocketing power and limited safety measures for drivers and spectators alike, led to a series of fatal accidents. Tragedies unfolded on stage after stage, crashes that killed talented drivers, injured co-drivers, and horrified fans. The sport was teetering on the edge. The final blow came in 1986, when Henri Tauvenin, one of rallying's brightest stars, and his co-driver Sergio Cresto perished in a fiery crash during the Tour de Corse, driving a Lancia Delta S4. This incident galvanized the FIA and the motorsport community to take decisive action. The dangers were simply too great to ignore, and after only a few short years, the governing body abruptly banned Group B from international rally competition. For the RS200 Evolution, this was a death sentence. The car, developed at great expense and promise, had barely hit the rally stages when the curtain fell. The most powerful and aggressive versions of the RS200, intended to take advantage of the looser regulations and push performance to the absolute limit, never had the chance to compete officially. They were too extreme for the road and suddenly prohibited from the very sport that justified their existence. These incredible machines, once destined to race for glory on the world's toughest stages, were effectively relegated to static showpieces, their potential forever frozen in time. Since then, surviving RS200 Evolutions have become prized collector's items, treasured for their rarity, beauty, and symbolic significance. Hidden in private garages or displayed behind glass in museums, they serve as potent reminders of a heady time when motorsport dared to flirt with the edge of disaster and brilliance. Owners and fans marvel at their raw engineering and the near-mythic stories that surround their curtailed racing careers. Beyond just a car, the RS200 Evolution stands as a monument to both human ingenuity and the sobering limits imposed by safety and circumstance. It embodies the intoxicating rush of pushing boundaries and the harsh reality that sometimes technology and ambition outpace the world's ability to keep up safely. Though banned from competition and often impractical for daily use, the RS200 Evolution's legend only grows, its wild heart beating eternally as a symbol of an era when motorsport was as thrilling as it was deadly, and when Ford dared to chase victory at any cost, only to have that chase tragically cut short. In this way, the RS200 Evolution is more than just a banned rally car. It's a testament to the finest heights of automotive passion and innovation, a shining beacon of the 1980s Group B era's brilliance and darkness intertwined, and a reminder of the fragile balance between speed, spectacle, and safety that every racer and fan must respect. The saga of the 1973 Mazda RX500 stands as one of the most evocative tales of automotive ambition stymied by the unforgiving tides of global change. At a time when the world's automotive landscape was brimming with bold visions and daring experiments, Mazda's RX500 was conceived not merely as a car, but as a daring manifesto, a symbol of technological progress and design innovation rooted in the promise of rotary engine power. It was meant to blaze a trail into a future where sports cars could marry sleek, space-age aesthetics with the rotary's revolutionary engineering. Yet the RX500's journey was tragically cut short, buried beneath a perfect storm of shifting economics, tightening environmental laws, and evolving safety standards that transformed the very rules by which the automobile world played. In the early 1970s, Mazda was arguably the global leader in rotary engine development. Unlike many manufacturers who dabbled cautiously, Mazda embraced the Wankel engine with almost evangelical fervor. The company's engineers were captivated by its compact, lightweight design, smooth operation, and ability to deliver high power outputs from a relatively small displacement. The RX500 represented the apex of this enthusiasm, embodying Mazda's vision of a future sports car that harnessed the rotary's potential to the fullest. Unlike conventional piston engines that dominated the era, the RX500's rotary heart promised to deliver a unique driving experience, high-revving, smooth, and packed with technological panache. Stylistically, the RX500 was nothing short of revolutionary. The car was sculpted into a wedge-shaped masterpiece, an avant-garde design that seemed to leap out of the imagination of futurists and aerospace engineers, rather than traditional automotive designers. The sharply angular bodywork, pronounced nose, and low profile gave it an almost aggressive stance, while the mid-engine configuration ensured balanced handling and driver-focused dynamics. Adding to its futuristic appeal was the glass canopy-style roof, a bubble cockpit that enveloped the driver and passenger, offering panoramic views and emphasizing the car's concept of blending man and machine in a futuristic symbiosis. However, the world in which the RX500 was born was swiftly changing. The 1973 oil crisis struck with a shock that reverberated through every corner of the global economy, and the automotive industry was no exception. The crisis not only transformed public attitudes toward fuel consumption, but also propelled governments worldwide into action, instituting stringent emissions controls and fuel economy mandates designed to curb pollution and reduce dependence on foreign oil. Despite the rotary engine's many merits, its fuel economy was often poor relative to comparable piston engines, and it emitted relatively high levels of unburned hydrocarbons, making it a target for regulatory scrutiny. At the same time, the rising awareness of automotive safety brought another wave of challenges. Crash test standards, impact regulations, and pedestrian safety protocols were becoming increasingly exacting, particularly in influential markets like the United States and Western Europe. The RX500's radical wedge design and lightweight construction, which were optimized for performance and aesthetic daring, conflicted with these new safety mandates. The glass canopy roof, while visually stunning, posed complex challenges in crash scenarios, and the sharp edges and low profile would require costly structural reinforcements and design compromises to meet evolving homologation requirements. Faced with this perfect storm, political, economic, environmental, and regulatory, Mazda confronted a brutal reality. The RX500, for all its promise and innovation, was simply not viable for production under the new rules. Attempting to re-engineer the car to meet emissions and safety standards would have demanded significant compromises that would have stripped away the very qualities that made it special: its lightweight agility, futuristic styling, and rotary powertrain's raw character. Ultimately, Mazda shelved the project. The RX500 remained a lone prototype, a frozen snapshot of a moment when automotive optimism dared to imagine a different kind of future. This solitary car, now preserved in a museum, serves as both an artifact and a symbol, an emblem of innovation constrained by circumstance. Today, the RX500's legacy is complex but compelling. It is a shining testament to Mazda's pioneering spirit and technical courage, embodying a fleeting era when rotary engines promised to revolutionize the sports car segment. At the same time, it reminds us of the relentless march of progress outside the showroom and design studio, how global events, shifting priorities, and societal concerns shape the fate of even the most promising technologies. The RX500's wedge-shaped silhouette, its mid-engine rotary heart, and its space-age canopy continue to inspire designers and enthusiasts, embodying the spirit of unbounded creativity. Yet its story also serves as a poignant reminder that in the fast-moving world of automotive development, brilliance alone is never enough. Success requires timing, adaptability, and sometimes the grace to recognize when a dream must be set aside, no matter how dazzling its promise. In the end, the Mazda RX500 stands not just as a canceled project or a prototype lost to history, but as a monument to ambition, a snapshot of an era, and a beacon for all who dare to imagine what the future of performance and design might hold. The 1971 Mercedes-Benz C111-3 diesel prototype stands as a remarkable testament to Mercedes' relentless pursuit of technological innovation and performance excellence, pushing the boundaries of what diesel engines could achieve at a time when diesel was still seen primarily as a workhorse fuel for trucks and economy cars. This striking gull-winged machine, with its futuristic styling and advanced engineering, was more than just a concept car. It was a bold experiment to redefine speed, efficiency, and automotive capability. Yet despite its awe-inspiring feats, the C111-3 was destined never to grace public roads, caught in a web of regulatory restrictions that ultimately banned it from official registration, confining it instead to private test tracks and museum display. Mercedes first unveiled the C111 series in the late 1960s, showcasing a wedge-shaped sports car body with dramatic gull-wing doors, an unmistakable hallmark of Mercedes' engineering prowess and design daring. The earlier versions experimented with rotary engines and gasoline power plants, but it was the third iteration, the C111-3, that became a groundbreaking diesel speed record challenger. Powered by a triple-rotor diesel engine that was turbocharged for maximum output, the C111-3 was engineered to push diesel beyond conventional limits, targeting high-speed performance that rivaled the fastest petrol cars of its day. During test runs on closed circuits, including Germany's legendary Nardo high-speed track and the Autobahn test sections, the C111-3 pushed the envelope by surpassing 200 miles per hour, a staggering achievement for a diesel-powered car in 1971. This feat shattered preconceived notions about diesel engines, proving that with the right engineering and turbocharging, they could deliver blistering speed, impressive torque, and remarkable fuel efficiency simultaneously. However, the very qualities that made the C111-3 extraordinary also doomed it from ever being registered for street use. German road regulations, as well as international vehicle standards, required homologation processes, safety certifications, and emissions compliance that experimental cars like the C111 simply could not satisfy. Its radical design, unique engine configuration, and prototype status excluded it from public road approval. The regulatory frameworks, designed to ensure public safety and environmental standards, effectively banned the C111-3 from the streets, no matter how extraordinary its capabilities. As a result, Mercedes confined the C111-3 to private test tracks and controlled environments. It became a record-setting machine, used exclusively for high-speed runs that demonstrated the cutting edge of diesel technology, but always kept off public roads and away from the everyday driving world. Following the conclusion of its testing and record attempts, the C111-3 prototypes were meticulously preserved and eventually placed in Mercedes-Benz's factory museum, where they stand as an emblem of innovation and the limits imposed by regulation. The legacy of the 1971 Mercedes-Benz C111-3 diesel is a bittersweet one. On one hand, it represents an engineering milestone that expanded the perception of diesel engines' potential, foreshadowing the later dominance of diesel technology in both performance and efficiency arenas. It showcased Mercedes' willingness to invest in advanced research and push boundaries beyond conventional expectations. On the other hand, it is also a story of how visionary technology can be restrained by practical realities, regulations crafted for safety, environmental concerns, and market needs that leave experimental marvels forever grounded. Today, the C111-3 remains a symbol of what might have been, a car that redefined speed for diesel power yet was banned from becoming a public performance icon. For enthusiasts, engineers, and historians alike, it serves as a reminder that innovation is often a dance between imagination and limitation, a push and pull that shapes the future of automotive technology. The gleaming gull-wing doors, the sleek wedge body, and the roar of its turbocharged diesel heart echo in the halls of the Mercedes Museum, forever capturing a moment when speed and diesel fuel dared to dream beyond the possible and were stopped by the rules of the road. The story of the 1990 Lamborghini LM003 is a fascinating and almost tragic chapter in the saga of one of the world's most iconic and daring automotive brands. While Lamborghini is globally renowned for its jaw-dropping supercars and audacious designs, the LM series, the wild off-roaders born from a blend of military ambition and exotic excess, stands apart as a unique testament to the brand's willingness to push boundaries. Among these, the LM003 represents a cautionary tale about innovation, compromise, and the harsh realities of brand identity. The Lamborghini LM002, often affectionately nicknamed the Rambo Lambo, was a beast of a vehicle, equipped with a powerful 5.2-liter V12 engine lifted from the Countach supercar. It combined brute force with luxury and aggressive styling in a way no one had ever done before. This monstrous off-roader was capable of tackling rough terrain while delivering exotic car performance, making it a favorite not only among collectors but also military forces in several countries who valued its ruggedness and capability. However, Lamborghini's leadership and engineers soon realized that while the LM002's V12 gave it immense power, it was a thirsty machine that struggled with fuel economy and operational costs, significant factors when considering military and utilitarian markets. The thought arose, what if Lamborghini could create a variant of the LM002 powered by a more practical diesel engine? Diesel power promised longer range, better fuel efficiency, and lower running costs, critical features for any military application. Enter the LM003, an ambitious but ultimately ill-fated attempt to marry the robust off-road capable LM chassis with a 3.6-liter diesel four-cylinder. On paper, this seemed a sensible evolution, a rugged Lamborghini with the practicality needed for wider military contracts and utilitarian use. The diesel was expected to bring endurance and efficiency to the platform, making the LM more versatile and commercially viable beyond exotic car buyers. However, once the prototype was built and tested, it became glaringly obvious that the LM003 was a misstep. The 3.6-liter diesel simply lacked the power and torque needed to move the hefty SUV with any kind of urgency or confidence. The LM002's frame and bulk demanded a robust power plant, and the diesel four-cylinder was woefully inadequate. The result was a sluggish, heavy, and frankly uninspiring machine that lumbered awkwardly over terrain where the V12-powered version had previously thrived. The raw, aggressive personality that defined the LM line was replaced by a slow, almost cumbersome vehicle that fell far short of Lamborghini's standards. Beyond performance, the existence of the LM003 raised a critical question about brand identity. Lamborghini was, and still is, a symbol of high performance, speed, and thrilling automotive passion. The diesel LM variant risked tarnishing that image by presenting a watered-down, compromised version of the off-roader that contradicted everything Lamborghini stood for. Executives feared that releasing the LM003 would confuse customers, dilute the brand's luxury and performance ethos, and ultimately harm Lamborghini's hard-earned reputation. Faced with these realities, Lamborghini made the unusual but decisive choice to halt all further development and testing of the LM003. More than that, the company went so far as to destroy the single prototype to ensure that it never entered production or public consciousness. This rare act of internal censorship and brand protection underscored just how seriously Lamborghini took its image and market position. The LM003's demise left it as a ghostly footnote, barely remembered, rarely spoken of outside insider circles and dedicated collectors, yet it offers profound insights into the challenges exotic manufacturers face when balancing innovation with identity. Lamborghini's refusal to compromise on performance, even in the face of potential commercial gain, is a powerful testament to the brand's commitment to its core values. While the LM002 achieved cult status, celebrated for its audacity and unmatched character, the LM003 remains a shadow, a reminder that not every experiment leads to success, and that sometimes the greatest act is to recognize when a concept threatens the very essence of what makes a brand special. The LM003's story is a lesson in integrity, ambition, and the delicate dance between expanding market appeal and preserving legendary status. Today, the LM003 lives on only in photographs and whispered legends, a lost chapter in Lamborghini's adventurous history. Its story fascinates enthusiasts and historians because it reveals the vulnerability and hard decisions behind the glamour of supercar manufacturing. It teaches us that behind every icon lies a series of trials and errors, and that the greatest brands survive by sometimes choosing what not to build as much as what they do. In the end, the 1990 Lamborghini LM003 stands as a monument to the fine line between innovation and compromise, and the enduring power of brand identity in shaping automotive history. It is the echo of a dream that never fully took flight, but whose memory continues to remind us of Lamborghini's fearless pursuit of performance perfection, no matter the cost. The 1958 GM Firebird 3 is one of the most spectacular and imaginative concept cars ever created. A dazzling, almost surreal vision of the future that looked more like a spaceship than a road vehicle. With its sleek aerodynamic body, prominent tail fins, and expansive bubble canopy, the Firebird 3 embodied the boundless optimism and technological fascination of the late 1950s, a period when jet engines, rockets, and atomic power captured the collective imagination of designers and engineers alike. Powered by a gas turbine engine, a technology borrowed from aircraft, this car promised a glimpse into a radically different kind of automotive future, where speed, smoothness, and innovation reigned supreme. Yet, despite its breathtaking appearance and engineering daring, the Firebird 3's destiny was sealed by the stark realities of regulation, practicality, and safety concerns, leading to a global ban that consigned it to the role of a museum showpiece rather than a road-ready vehicle. During the 1950s, the automotive world was in the throes of experimentation fueled by the aerospace revolution. Gas turbine engines, with their compact size, fewer moving parts, and high power-to-weight ratio, seemed like an ideal power source for next-generation vehicles. General Motors seized upon this excitement and poured immense resources into the Firebird series, culminating in the Firebird 3. This version featured a powerful turbine engine that promised smooth acceleration and impressive performance. Its futuristic design, with sweeping tail fins inspired by jet aircraft, a low-slung chassis, and that iconic clear bubble canopy, gave it the look of a car from another world, embodying both the space age and the golden era of American automotive styling. However, beneath the spectacle lay the hard challenges of making turbine power viable on public roads. Unlike traditional piston engines, turbine engines operate at incredibly high temperatures, generating immense heat that posed safety hazards. The exhaust was dangerously hot, and the engine itself was known for producing a loud, high-pitched noise that was far from the comfortable hum expected in road cars. More critically, the turbine's emissions, especially unburned hydrocarbons and nitrogen oxides, could not meet the tightening environmental standards that governments around the world were beginning to enforce in response to growing concerns about air pollution. Safety regulators and transportation authorities scrutinized the Firebird 3 and quickly concluded that turbine-powered vehicles were simply not suitable for everyday road use. The risks associated with high exhaust temperatures, noise pollution, and emissions made approval impossible. This rejection was not unique to GM. Similar projects like the Chrysler Turbine Car faced the same fate. As a result, the idea of turbine-powered cars was officially abandoned across the industry, and companies quietly agreed not to pursue turbine engines for mass production. General Motors, recognizing the Firebird 3's importance as a symbol of innovation, but acknowledging the insurmountable regulatory hurdles, retired the vehicle to their collection. It became a museum showpiece, a spectacular reminder of a bold but ultimately unrealized vision of automotive progress. The company effectively banned turbine cars from production, acknowledging that the technology, while fascinating, was incompatible with the practical demands and regulatory frameworks governing public road vehicles. The legacy of the 1958 GM Firebird 3 is a striking illustration of the intersection between imagination and reality in automotive history. It represents a moment when engineers dared to reimagine what a car could be, melding jet-age technology with space-age design to create something truly extraordinary. Yet, it also underscores how progress is often constrained by factors beyond pure creativity: safety, environmental responsibility, and the rules that keep public roads manageable and secure. Today, the Firebird 3 stands as a shining icon in museums and automotive exhibitions worldwide. Its gleaming tail fins, bubble canopy, and turbine heart continue to captivate enthusiasts and historians, evoking an era of bold dreams and daring experiments. While it never raced down highways or cruised city streets, its story remains a powerful testament to the spirit of innovation and the delicate balance between technological possibility and the real-world demands that shape what cars ultimately become. In the end, the Firebird 3 is more than just a jet turbine car. It is a symbol of the audacity to dream beyond the horizon, to challenge convention, and to push the limits of design and engineering even when the world is not yet ready to follow. Its tale reminds us that every leap forward must navigate the complex terrain of regulation and practicality, and sometimes the most extraordinary ideas must remain forever just out of reach, preserved as legends rather than realities.